Welcome everyone to Tourism HR Canada's Propel Student Work Placement Program information session. While this event is virtual, we would like to acknowledge that across Canada, we are meeting on lands that have been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. Tourism HR Canada acknowledges that our office is on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. Tourism HR Canada recognizes the Algonquins as the customary keepers and defenders of the Ottawa River watershed and its tributaries. We honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory and uphold and uplift the voice and values of our host nation. We invite all attendees to join us in meaningfully and thoughtfully acknowledging the oppression of lands, cultures, and the original peoples in what we now know as Canada, and to consider how we can each move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. On today's information session, we have the following in the agenda. We will be leading with some introductions, a little bit about work integrated learning, a little bit about Propel and online portal, and a couple of questions at the end that we can address and open up for more questions. I'd like to introduce myself and my colleagues who will be hosting this session with you today. My name is Rachel George, and I'm a project manager at Tourism HR Canada. With me today is my colleague, Joe Baker, as well as Heather Elder, who will be presenting and moderating the questions at the end. And from here, I will hand over to my colleague, Joe.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everybody. It was great to see in the registrations representatives from the post-secondary institutions across Canada, also students who are enrolled in those post-secondary institutions, and some of our employer partners, as well as others from the nonprofit sector. So welcome, everybody. Rachel, I can't advance the slides for the moment unless you give me access, or if you want to advance them for me, that works too. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so what is work integrated learning? Yes, recognizing that we do have a diverse audience. We know that some of you will be more familiar with what work integrated learning is than others, especially those in the post-secondary sector. But for any of our employers who are new to work integrated learning, this is a definition that's put together by Cooperative Education and Work Integrated Learning Canada. We affectionately refer to them as CWIL, and they're the lead organization across this country for work integrated learning in Canada. So the long and short of work integrated learning is it is a component of a program that involves the academic institution, the student, and an employer in the field of study. And work integrated learning is really designed to help complement the academic program delivery with hands-on learning that takes place traditionally right in the workplace. So work integrated learning for Canada's hospitality and tourism industry has all kinds of different perspectives depending on which field of study the student is in and depending on which employer partner comes to the table to provide that work integrated learning opportunity. There will be a link in the chat to an article on the Tourism HR Canada website that goes more into detail as it relates to definitions of work integrated learning and types of work integrated learning, and also then links to the CWIL website that also gives you access to resources such as how you put together a positive work integrated learning experience for the students who are in your workplace. So lots there for you. Let's move forward. Okay, so types of work integrated learning. CWIL actually defines that there are 9 types of work integrated learning, but what we thought we would do is break it down to the 4 that are probably most relevant to the hospitality and tourism industry. No, this is not the exhaustive list. There are lots, but these are the ones that we see most commonly. Cooperative education, field placement, internships, and work experience. And again, at that link that we've provided, you can get more detail into actually identifying what the nuances and the differences are between each type of work integrated learning. But if you're an employer, these are the ways that the students will be coming to you. And if you're a post-secondary institution, ideally you're recognizing that these are components of your programs, and you will probably have other types of work integrated learning. And if you're a student and you're enrolled in these programs, these will ultimately be the things that show up that trigger you to know that you need to go out and pursue a work integrated learning opportunity to complement your program of study. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about what the Student Work Placement Program is. The Student Work Placement Program gives post-secondary students across Canada paid work experience related to their field of study. The Student Work Placement Program, or you may sometimes hear it referred to as SWIP, is ultimately funded by our federal government, by the Employment Social Development Skills Canada. So ESDC, Employment and Social Development Canada is funding the Student Work Placement Program. And it's funded specifically by sector. So this program has been around for a number of years, but this is the first time that the hospitality and tourism industry has had a dedicated student work placement program. So that's what we're really here to talk about today. And again, there's another link going in your chat that will take you right to that ESDC website if you want to learn more specifically about the student work placement program. So Propel is Tourism HR Canada's student work placement program. And the idea here is we have wage subsidies that are made available to hospitality and tourism industry employers to pay students for work integrated learning experiences in our sector, with the idea, of course, being that those students have an enriching on-the-job work integrated learning experience that is paid through the employer who receives the wage subsidy from Tourism HR Canada. And of course, that we want to launch the career of that student, ideally even within your organization. So think about work integrated learning and think about the Propel program as a great way to develop early talent within your organization. Let's talk a little bit about the high-level calls to action. We will get into more details of how this program works through this webinar, and we will take questions throughout the presentation in the chat, and we will do our level best to answer them at the end of the presentation. But if you are sitting there right now and you are from one of the post-secondary institutions across this country, there are 3 things that we're asking your help. Please help us share Propel information. propelcareers.ca is our website. You'll see it there. We're going to go over the portal a little bit today, and we have access to all kinds of different supporting materials for you. We want you to share the Propel program. Firstly, we want you to share it with your students. There are students in your programs who are trying to find work integrated learning opportunities throughout their year. And this program is in place for the summer semester, for the fall semester, and for the winter semester. But also, we want you to share the Propel information with your direct partners and employers. We know that strong post-secondary institutions are grounded in their local communities. We know that Canada is a very diverse place from a geography and regional perspective. We understand that there is incredible strength between the post-secondary institutions of a city or of a community, as well as the hospitality and tourism businesses. So for our post-secondary institution partners, please share freely the Propel information to your students and to your employer partners. Now, if you are a student attending this information session, or if Information is being passed on to students through post-secondary institutions. There are really only a few things that you need to do, even though we understand that you are the one that gets to go through these great work integrated learning opportunities. This is a digital portal. It requires you to apply for a WIL opportunity, the same way that you would apply for a job. And again, we'll talk a little bit about that portal later on, but it's a place for you to build your profile, look for work integrated learning opportunities, ones that are in your local community, but also assuming safe travel is available. There are great work integrated learning opportunities across this country. And I know that there are some employers who are attending this information session right now that would welcome students from different provinces and different cities. Again, safe travel is always a priority, but we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to take advantage of lots of work integrated learning experiences from across the country. There is a process in this digital portal where you will need to provide proof of enrollment within your program, and that there is a component of work integrated learning as part of that program. We will again circle back around in this presentation and go over those eligibility criteria that have been laid out by ESDC. But work integrated learning needs to be a component of the program that you're enrolled in to be able to access these opportunities and for your employers to be able to access the wage subsidies. And quite frankly, the rest is really up to you. Complete that placement, go all the way through, learn as much as you can on the job, and go on to have great success within your career. That's what we're asking our student partners to do. And if you're an employer, right now, we are going to walk through in a little more detail how you access our portal and how you work through our processes. It is important to say at the beginning, yes, we recognize for everybody involved, employers, academic institutions, and students, there is a certain amount of administration that is required. This is a digital system that has been put together to ensure that we match students with employment opportunities from across the country that meet the criteria of ESDC. And we do need to be very careful as we move people and as we get wage subsidies out there. We are living in a very important space of accountability. So there is a lot of that as you go through the system. That shouldn't deter you from going in and posting opportunities and taking advantage of this program, but I just did want to acknowledge that we do recognize that there's a certain amount of administration that is required, but we know that you already know that it's time well invested. So if you are an employer, please go on to our system, create a profile for your organization, post a work integrated learning opportunity, and we'll give you a little more detail very soon. As you're going through that process, you can apply for a wage subsidy. You don't have to do those two things separately. You can do them all at the same time. And then ultimately, it's your responsibility to hire a student in the same way you would hire anybody for an opportunity. So you're posting an opportunity. It is accessible to post-secondary institutions and students from across the country. You are also applying for that wage subsidy at the same time. And then you make your selection and you hire that student for that paid work integrated learning opportunity. And my colleague Rachel is going to talk a little bit more about that process that also includes how to navigate your way through that wage subsidy application. So this ultimately is the Propel online portal, and we're going to walk you through this. Yes, this component of our presentation is a little bit more focused on our employer partners, but if you're an academic institution or you are a student, this is still worthwhile watching because it's the same system that everybody ultimately has to access. propelcareers.ca is our website. It takes you directly to the portal, and we've also put that right in the chat for you there. And without further ado, I am going to pass it back to my colleague, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Joe. Now, with this online portal, essentially, you can do two things. You can post a work integrated learning opportunity and or apply for a wage subsidy. For employers, the overall process would kind of look like this. You would post the opportunity, then apply for the wage subsidy, and then hire a student if you've not already got one filled in the placement. What I'm going to show you in the next few slides is just a very brief overview of what these look like on the online portal with some images that should help. Starting off with posting an opportunity, these are some of the things that you will be asked for. Things like, what type of opportunity are you recruiting for? You can select from the number of options that are there. You can then target a specific field or area of study. You can also target the schools that you would like to show this opportunity to, or you can filter by province or territories. In addition, you would then be asked to talk a little bit about the opportunity you are now posting, whether it be the wages, the length of the placement, the description of the job, etc. And then after that, you can then talk about yourself as an organization and the main contact at this organization who's posting this opportunity. One of the final key steps before you post this opportunity is to then select Tourism HR Canada so that you're posting it under Propel Student Work Placement Program funding when you post the opportunity. Next, we're just going to look at what it looks like to submit an application for wage subsidies. The overall process for an employer when they're submitting a wage subsidy application is to essentially go to the portal, you submit the wage subsidy application. Once we received your application and we process it, we will be in touch with an employer agreement. Once the placement has been completed, you are free to come in and update the application and provide us invoice and supporting documents at the end of the placement so that we can proceed with payment processing. For the actual wage subsidy application, essentially you would select the term that this applies to. Tell us a little bit about yourself as an organization that's employing the student, as well as the placement type. Next, you would also be asked to provide information about the student you have hired. If you've not hired a student at this point, you can skip this step. If you hire a student after you've submitted your wage subsidy application, you can always come back to update your application with the information about the student. You will also be provided an opportunity to upload documents. And this is also a step that you can skip and come back to update your application if you would like to do so later. And now I will hand over back to Joe.
All right, thank you. So as mentioned at the beginning, this is a student work placement program funded by ESTC and our federal government. So they outline the eligibility requirements for all SWIP partners, including Tourism HR Canada. So these are eligibility requirements that are a part of the broader student work placement program, but we do need to follow them. The first one is that this program is eligible only for domestic students, as defined as Canadian permanent residents or citizens. We certainly acknowledge and respect and appreciate the incredible effort for international students to come to Canada and study programs in our field. At this time, unfortunately, those students are not eligible for this program, but it is eligible and available for domestic students. Students need to be registered at a recognized Canadian post-secondary institution in a program that includes a work placement. So once again, these are registered post-secondary institutions, colleges and universities from across the country. And within that program, there needs to be a component of work integrated learning. So keep in mind, as outlined at the beginning, there are many different work integrated learning forms that come within programs across this country. Lots of institutions approach it in different ways that suits their curriculum and their uniqueness. So your program does need to contain some element of work integrated learning. And it is fairly common these days for programs to have them. There are not that many who don't. So that's something that you can validate and check. If you are a student, check with your program faculty or coordinators or administrators. And if you are representing a post-secondary institution, then you will be very familiar with programs that do or don't have work integrated learning components to them. Okay. Advance here. Oh, that moved very quickly. So eligible employers, same thing here. These are eligibility criteria as outlined by ESDC. Tourism and hospitality industry employer or a tourism and hospitality related job function. As mentioned previously, there are many student work placement programs out there in different sectors across the country. This is specifically for the tourism and hospitality industry, which means if you are a tourism and hospitality industry employer, or you are an employer sitting slightly outside the field but have a tourism and hospitality related job function, you are eligible to post jobs, work integrated learning opportunities, and apply for those wage subsidies. These jobs or these work integrated learning opportunities can be either on-site or remote or hybrid. We certainly recognize that we are working and living in a challenging time right now. So there can be adaptability to those work integrated learning roles. There is a little bit of a nuance here. An individual who is receiving a wage subsidy via this program cannot also be receiving another federal grant or program, including some of those that are in the market right now for people who have been affected by the COVID pandemic and the challenges we're experiencing. That doesn't mean that an organization itself can't receive different grants or funding sources, but it does mean if an employer is hiring a student for a work integrated learning experience as part of this program, that same student can't be receiving any other grants or programs through the employer related to other subsidies. So there is some more information on that within the ESDC site, but it is important note. And students must ultimately be hired as an employee of the company, not as an independent contractor. So those are components that are important. And what we thought we would do at this point is welcome our colleague Heather from Tourism HR Canada. She has been in the chat room and she has been monitoring the questions that were submitted before the presentation. So what we thought we would do is do our best to answer some of your questions. If we can't get to answering your question in this webinar, you now have our contact information. Feel free to send a more detailed email to propel@tourismhr.ca. And you can also then access all of the content that's on our website, which is propelcareers.ca. And that really is more depth of what we presented today. Heather, do you want to join us?
Yes, thank you, Joe.
Great.
So thank you to everyone who submitted questions. We've had a lot of really great questions from a variety of employers and post-secondary institutions and students. So really appreciate that. I did want to just note quickly that we are recording this presentation and we will make it available to everyone hopefully later today or tomorrow once we get the recording up and have a link to send out. So just to start off, in terms of some of the, I guess the funding and the period of time that that's available for, if you don't mind just quickly revisiting the period of time that the funding is available. So if someone has already hired a student and they worked, whether it was over the summer or started working in September, whether the funding would apply, I guess, sorry, the other question is sort of a repeat of that, but since the fall term has already started, are they only able to apply going forwards?
Great. So yes. So this is the first year that Tourism HR Canada has received funding for this program. We received funding beginning June. So if you have a student who did a work integrated learning placement within your organization as part of a post-secondary program, then employers are eligible to apply retroactively for the wage subsidy for the spring summer semester that started in June, recognizing that yes, some programs began earlier, except we didn't have approval for this program until June. And then also for the entirety of the fall semester. So recognizing that we are now sitting in October, if you hired and are paying a work integrated learning student for a placement, you are a hospitality and tourism industry employer and they are a registered post-secondary student in a program that has a component of will in it, you can apply retroactively for the fall semester as well. Or if you want to just get started now and go in there and you're an employer, you want to post that opportunity, students who are currently looking for work integrated learning experiences in the fall semester can still apply. And then the third and final semester, we are accepting both subsidy applications and looking for employers to post opportunities for the winter semester, beginning in January. And then that essentially will allow those employers to be pre-approved for what will happen over the winter semester up until funding is eligible up until the end of March. And all of the nuance of applying retroactively for those wage subsidies, as well as applying for wage subsidies in the subsequent semesters, such as the winter semester. More information can be found at propelcareers.ca. And if this is something that has affected you specifically, whether you're an employer or a post-secondary institution or a student, you can email us at propel@tourismhr.ca. So for our post-secondary partners, if you know that there are employers within your region who paid for students to go on work integrated learning experiences the summer that we completed and the fall semester now, they can apply retroactively to get access to those grants. So please do encourage that as you send the communications out to your employer networks.
Great, thank you, Joe. So we have some questions about eligibility criteria. First of all, what would bar employers from being eligible? Do they need to be incorporated? If they have received the CEWS, the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, are they still eligible? If you wouldn't mind maybe just touching on those points again.
Sure. So first of all, as you're going through these processes in the Propel portal, every step along the way, you will be asked for information about your business, about the opportunity that you're posting. And so that system will always prompt you for what you need. So regardless of where you're sitting right now, we would encourage you to start the process and start exploring, because that dynamic of what your business is or what the opportunity is or who is eligible gets fleshed out as you apply for that wage subsidy. So regardless, if you're hoping that you will be eligible for the wage subsidy, but you're not sure, I would highly encourage you to start the process in propelcareers.ca, right in the portal. That being said, yes, there is a business number requirement as you're going through. So you don't have to be an incorporated business. That's a unique dynamic, whether you're a sole proprietor, but you do need a business number as you apply through that system, and it will request that you upload your mailing address, your phone number, and all the details around your business. So when you're applying through the Propel portal, all of those requirements will come up and you will have to respond accordingly. So that should give you the ability to sense check whether you are eligible for those wage subsidies or not.
Perfect, thank you. Quick question on what would be acceptable as proof of a work integrated learning component?
So when you upload eligibility of being registered in a post-secondary program, there needs to be some evidence that your program has a work integrated learning component. So whether you're uploading something that outlines the courses that are in your program, and one of those courses says field placement or work integrated learning or internship requirement, there needs to be something from the academic institution that identifies that there is a component of work integrated learning that is part of your program. And if you're going through that and you can't find something that you need to upload in the system, you can absolutely reach out to your post-secondary institution faculty member, program coordinator, potentially a chair or a director or a dean to get evidence that your program does have a component of work integrated learning. And we would always say, check with your faculty first. They will know if the program that you're enrolled in has some component of work integrated learning.
Thank you, Joe. Wondering if you could just quickly perhaps point people to where they might find more details on the application process. This would be from an employer perspective.
So on the Tourism HR Canada website, under Propel or going to propelcareers.ca, there are sections that are specifically for post-secondary institutions, students, and employers. And in that employer section contains a guide. It's a fully fleshed out PDF guide, and we're actually in the process of developing some supplemental video material that will guide employers through the application process. Keeping in mind, and as mentioned, this is an ESDC SWPP program. Those eligibility requirements for the businesses are also on the ESDC website, and we provided that link early on. So you can really get lots of information on the ESDC website, and then lots of information on the Tourism HR Canada website. There are guides, there will be video tutorials as to how to access and apply for the system, and we are always available at propel@tourismhr.ca.
Thank you. Are employers able to post more than one available position?
Yes, great question. Employers are encouraged to post more than one position. Post as many positions as you can. We recognize the challenges that the tourism and hospitality industry are facing, both from a business level perspective as we try to turn the corner away from the COVID pandemic, but also we recognize the workforce challenges that our employer partners have been experiencing. We see this program as an amazing opportunity to get students in those workplaces under paid work integrated learning opportunities so they can become your workforce of the future. So we would highly encourage you to submit work integrated learning opportunities for multiple students. And the process, once you're using the system, you'll get used to it and it becomes easier as you post more opportunities. So even if you're posting your first opportunity for the upcoming semester and you're looking at some retroactive opportunities, you can always increase the number of postings on that portal, and then it gives you an access to a number of students who can be working within your business. We had another focused meeting today with a region from one of our provinces in the country, and somebody said, I got really good at using this system, so it became a lot easier for me to access. And that's exactly what it is. Like any other portal, you can access it. And as mentioned, this program, an eligible employer includes a business and an organization within the tourism and hospitality sector. It also includes the nonprofit sector. So if you are a tourism and hospitality related nonprofit business or nonprofit organization, you have eligibility. And even the post-secondary institutions themselves are eligible to apply for wage subsidies to create work integrated learning opportunities for hospitality and tourism students. So again, we talked about the definitions of work integrated learning and the types of work integrated learning. We do recognize that there are post-secondary institutions who may be engaging in applied research projects on behalf of industry partners who may otherwise have typically hired students to conduct those applied research or to take part in those applied research projects. And those kinds of programs and those kinds of work integrated learning experiences and those types of organizations are also eligible. So I would highly encourage you to spend time on the ESDC website, familiarizing yourself with the eligibility requirements, and then dive right into the portal, right into propelcareers.ca, and post as many opportunities as you can.
Thank you, Joe. A few questions from the student perspective. Because of COVID, some students were unable to get internships during their course of study. So I guess maybe just a bit of detail or confirmation about those who have graduated applying for this program.
Yes, so unfortunately, if you have already graduated from your program, you are not eligible for these opportunities. So we hope that this is the first of many years that this program is in existence, because we certainly recognize that a wage subsidy paid directly to employers within our industry that is in turn paid directly to students has tremendous potential impact on their careers. So for those who have not, who are no longer enrolled in academic programs, you're not eligible for this funding. But if you are a student and you have graduated from a hospitality and tourism program, I would imagine that there are a bunch of employers on this call right now who have openings that you can apply for. So I would also encourage you to continue to apply for opportunities that are posted everywhere right now. We don't ourselves run a job board, but there are lots of them out there. And if you are a student who is a recent graduate, there should be lots of opportunity around, because there are some amazing work experience opportunities and jobs in the hospitality and tourism industry right now that will lead you to long and unique and diverse and experienced careers.
Thanks, Joe. Somewhat related to that is, could you perhaps touch a bit on the Propel portal and how it works for students? Do they go in there to post a resume, or how would that work?
Yeah, so great question. The portal itself is actually created by an organization called Magnet, and is an Outcome Campus Connect is the actual technology that is driving the portal. If you are already enrolled in an academic program that has the Magnet system potentially installed within your institution, and you're already planning on using that portal, that platform, to look for employment opportunities or look for work integrated learning opportunities, then you already have a profile built in the system. And so when you go into our portal, it is still built on the same system. But if it's your first time as a student going into this portal, it's very much like any other system. It could be as simple as something like LinkedIn or any of the social media platforms, really, where the first step is ultimately about building your profile, who you are, what program you're enrolled in, your background, and then yes, uploading a resume and looking at the opportunities. It functions very much like a digital job board, looking at the opportunities by region, looking at the opportunities by organization, and then clicking on them, finding the details, learning about the employers, applying for those opportunities. So that's what the portal is ultimately all about. And why we say to the employer partners, this portal gives you access to post-secondary students from across the country studying hospitality and tourism or related programs. Well, the same goes for students. If you are a student studying in one of those programs, this portal gives you access to an employer network from across the country. And as mentioned before, yes, safe travel is always important. However, if you can travel safely, there are some amazing work integrated learning opportunities that may be outside of your region that can bring you to a whole new component of your career. Because obviously this country is very unique and there are different things happening within our sector, depending on the different regions, depending on our amazingly diverse geography. And there are lots of great hospitality and tourism organizations out there posting opportunities for students that could pull you in a completely unique direction for your career. Explore, experiment, click around, get comfortable in the system, and really go out there and find exactly what you're looking for.
Thank you. So a few more questions on the Outcome Campus Connect system from a post-secondary perspective. Could you maybe touch on institutions who are not on that system and how they would go about accessing Propel?
Yeah. So for institutions who are not on the system, that isn't going to hinder your access to Propel. Propelcareers.ca is a website, and our portal is accessible to anybody who has access to the internet. Post-secondary institutions who are already working with Magnet within their institution may be a little bit more familiar with it, but if you're not, it just means we need more help passing these links and this Propel program onto your students and onto your employer partners.
Thank you. So if anyone on the call had, maybe were looking to confirm whether or not they already had an account or their institution had an account, how would you direct them?
So if you're in a post-secondary institution, you likely have a career center, somebody who's responsible for work integrated learning across the institution. Those are usually the places who are responsible for this access to this portal. So I would suggest that you reach out to career services, co-op offices, work integrated learning directors, managers. They will know if you have access to Magnet and Outcome Campus Connect. But from a functionality perspective, it doesn't actually matter. If you go on to propelcareers.ca and you get access to the portal, that's all you would need to do to share it with your students. Because if a student is enrolled in a post-secondary program who isn't working within the Magnet or Outcome Campus Connect system, they can still have access to all of the same opportunities. They can still go in and create a profile and apply for a job and work their way through that system. So if you're a post-secondary institution who doesn't already have a relationship with Magnet and Outcome Campus Connect, all we would ask is that you share the link, share the sentiments, share the ideas. There's lots of content that's on our website that you can share with your students and with your employer partners. And the message is quite simple. If you're an employer, post a work integrated learning opportunity and apply for a wage subsidy. If you're a student, go into the system and apply for a work integrated learning experience. It's quite straightforward.
Great, thanks, Joe. A few more specific questions around eligibility on the employer side. So you had touched a bit on the willingness of the program to be flexible about where the job is taking place. So just some confirmation that what would happen if an employer had a home-based business, and then also in terms of definitions around nonprofits, whether that would include things like a small museum.
Yeah, so if you have a home-based business, that's fine. The physical location of the job doesn't impact your eligibility for this program. That's why we said they can be in person, they can be remote, they can be hybrid. An employer may begin a work integrated learning opportunity with a student with the world in its current state, and something may shift specifically related to the pandemic, and the condition of that work integrated learning opportunity may need to shift. That's why there's some flexibility built into that. In terms of the definitions of the nonprofit organizations, that is on the ESDC website. But as an example, if you are a small museum, yeah, absolutely. That to me is a cultural heritage tourism field. It's a bit of a crossover between the arts and tourism, but by our eligibility standards, that still remains a tourism-based organization. And as long as you're a registered business or a registered nonprofit, you can still post opportunities. So again, a lot of the details in terms of the student eligibility, the post-secondary institution eligibility, and the employer eligibility come right from ESDC, and that's why we provided the link to the ESDC Student Work Placement Program pages.
Great, thanks, Joe. A question about whether an employer could decline the grant or funding once it's been approved if, for example, they were to start receiving more money from CEWS as opposed to from the SWEP program.
Yeah, so good question. And from a functionality perspective, essentially the employer is both posting a work integrated learning opportunity and applying for the wage subsidy at the same time. If they are approved for the wage subsidy, employers need to pay the students and they are reimbursed up to a maximum of 75% of the wages paid over the duration of the placement. And then they are reimbursed by Tourism HR Canada. So if through that process something changes and there's another source of funding, if you as an employer did not submit payroll documentation, did not submit an invoice to Tourism HR Canada for the reimbursement of your student, then you wouldn't be receiving this funding. So as you're going through that process, but it doesn't mean that you need to stop the placement. It just means that you've hired the student and it is a paid work integrated learning opportunity, and you have made the decision not to submit the documentation or the invoice to Tourism HR Canada for reimbursement. So theoretically, if you find another source of funding to pay that student, then that's fine with us. But we are really actively promoting paid work integrated learning opportunities. And that's why we're really excited about this program, because we think that this funding gives our employers access to funds that help them pay work integrated learning experiences for students, especially during the challenging times that we have right now. So we would encourage you to stick with it.
Perfect, thank you, Joe. In terms of some of the resources and information that I know we have in development right now to provide to post-secondary institutions so that they can get the word out about the program. Just wondering if you could maybe touch on the sorts of things that we will be supplying and have up on our website and that are currently in development.
Yeah, absolutely. So as of right now, there's lots of content that's on our website. There are also downloadable PDFs that are guides, especially from an employer perspective, that take you through the process of applying for the wage subsidy and posting those opportunities. We're also developing video assets. So we're actually working on a bit of a promotional video that we are hoping both our post-secondary institution partners as well as our employer partners can share with their colleagues and their networks. We understand that that video, gives people the ability to learn a little bit more about our program without necessarily taking the time to sit down and click and read all the documents. So we will have a promotional video out shortly. We are working on it right now. It will be bilingual for our French partners as well. And we are working on a comprehensive employer application process via video that will be segmented. So there will be step-by-step, employers will be able to look at videos and navigate through our system with screenshots and with comprehensive explanations as to what the processes are. There will be one that's a bit of a long form that kind of takes you from the beginning of the process all the way to the end, but they will also be broken up so you can continue to go back to our website and watch them as you're navigating your way through the process. Propelcareers.ca is going to be the destination. We will continue to update as things shift and change, because they do shift and change. So again, if you're looking for specific resources that can help promote this program within the post-secondary institutions, within your employer networks, or directly to the students, check out our website. You can also send us an email. We've been doing some smaller group sessions. And again, so if there's more detail that we can provide you as an organization, as a post-secondary institution, as a region, we're also happy to organize those presentations too.
Perfect, thank you, Joe. Quick question here, and I think we've just got time for one or two more. But do colleges need to register to be included, or is it up to employers and students to register and apply?
Can you ask that question again, just to make sure I'm answering it the right way?
Sure, sorry. Do colleges need to register to be included, or is it up to the employers and students to register and apply?
Okay, so Colleges and universities do not need to register for anything. The only thing that colleges and universities need to do is share the Propel portal and access to those resources, both with their students and with their employer partners, but they don't actually have to register. If, as kind of mentioned before, if you are already working within the Magnet network and the Outcome Campus Connect network, there may be a little bit more integration with your learning management system. So it may be a little bit easier, but at the end of the day, this is a matter of copying and pasting our URL, sharing those resource guides, and when the videos are ready, sharing the videos both with your students and with your employer networks or your field placement coordinator offices, any of those things. You can just share. That's all you have to do. That's the joy of having a digital platform, is that it's ultimately a lot easier for us to reach post-secondary institutions, employers, and students from across the country. And I just did want to say, this is a national program. So regardless of where you are, if you are a student or a post-secondary institution anywhere in this country that has a tourism or hospitality related program, or you are an employer anywhere across this country, this digital platform gives you access. It's a connection point. We like to refer to it as a little bit of a train station. Employers are coming in, students are coming in, post-secondary institutions are coming in, and they're all leaving collectively.
Thank you, Joe. So I think just in the interest of time, I'll just go with one final question here. But I would like to encourage everyone, if you do have additional questions, or if you've submitted a question that we haven't had time to answer, and I do apologize for that, please do feel free to reach out, as Joe's mentioned, to the email address on the screen here, propel@tourismhr.ca, and we'll be happy to connect with you to get more information to you. But just a final clarification on the time availability for the wage subsidy program. So I guess this could be in terms of the June to the end of March timeframe, or the actual work placements themselves.
Great. Yeah. So as mentioned, this is our first year in hopefully optimistically our subsequent years. This funding will be available at the beginning of the summer semester. But this year, this funding was given to us beginning June 1st. So if you are an employer or a post-secondary institution or a student, we have wage subsidy funding available from June 1st all the way until March 31st. And within the system, within the Magnet Outcome Campus Connect system, employers, academic institutions, and students select the semester that they're applying both for work integrated learning opportunities and the wage subsidy. And those semesters are based on the traditional academic semesters. So the summer semester, the fall semester, and the winter semester. With the summer semester completely behind us, employers are eligible to apply retroactively. For the fall semester that we're in right now, employers are also eligible to apply retroactively to the beginning of September, although some post-secondary institutions don't begin their work integrated learning experiences right at the beginning. So there may still be students out there right now looking for those. So if you're an employer, post an opportunity as soon as you can for the current semester that we're in. And then the third semester is ultimately the winter semester, and that would be January until the end of March. As it relates to how long each of the work integrated learning experiences are, we have a minimum of 4 weeks. So a placement needs to be at least 4 weeks, but it could go to the maximum length of a semester. So it could go from the beginning of June, potentially until the end of August, could go from the beginning of September until the end of December, and then the beginning of January until the end of March. So, and as I mentioned before, when trying to determine if your business is eligible for this wage subsidy, I would highly encourage you all to just take the time to go into the system, get familiar with it. We respect how busy you are. Take a little bit of time, click through the process. you will be able to determine whether you are eligible for opportunities for wage subsidies retroactively or moving forward. This system is designed to ask you all the questions that are required to determine your eligibility based on ESDC criteria. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's how the system has been designed. So regardless of where you are, if you are hopeful, if you are optimistic, if you are curious, take the time, sit down, get into the website, fill it out as much as you possibly can, go through the portal, and give it a shot. And always, as Heather mentioned, we are here to help you as well. So propel@tourismhr.ca. If you have specific questions, send us an email and we'll be happy to look into your specific questions and cases. All right, I am going to hand it back to my colleague Rachel just to say thanks to everybody and wrap up. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I see some familiar names in the chat and some that we don't yet know. We are always, as a tourism and hospitality organization, at your service. So we're here to answer any questions that you have throughout your process. Rachel, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you very much, Joe. And thank you to yourself and Heather for your time to going through these questions and running us through the program and the variety of information that is required or that helps clarify the questions that are out there. Thank you everyone for your questions that you've been submitting. As we have mentioned before during the course of the presentation, this webinar is recorded, and at the end of the session, eventually when we've got the link ready, we will make it available for you to be able to access this information again. But as always, again, you can access more information about Propel on propelcareers.ca on the webpage, or you can email us with any further questions or clarifications. Maybe you have specific to your placement or circumstance. You've got some questions you want to submit to us. It's easier, or to set up a call. Please do email us at propel@tourismhr.ca. And on behalf of Tourism HR Canada, thank you all for your interest in the Propel Student Work Placement Program, as well as for your time joining us at the information session today. We look forward to connecting with some of you in the near future, and hope you all have a great Thanksgiving and rest of the week. Thank you.